Has Shri Narendra Modi lost his steam? Swagatham, welcome, vanakkam, Jai Hind. I'm sure all of you would be asking this question within yourself, though I don't hear this question being raised in public and sufficiently discussed. Namely, how are we to understand the very perceptible change that seems to have overtaken the image of our Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi? If you have watched the parliamentary debate following the presidential address to the joint session of the parliament, you would have seen a Modi who was radically different from the Modi we have seen in his full force and flow in the Parliament of India before that, for nearly 10 years. And also, if you have been watching his posturing, his statements, his body language, and even the words that he uses, the tone, you cannot but sense a change. The aura of invincibility that he gathered around himself, no doubt aided and abetted by the media and a host of very carefully calibrated tactics and strategies involving a massive investment of resources, that now stands seriously dented, and there is no hiding that fact. And what is worse, Sri Modi himself seems to be aware of it. In fact, this awareness actually caught up with him in a big way, in a very strong fashion, halfway through the election process itself. In fact, I began to notice it from the third stage of the elections, which was organized in 7 different stages, as you know. And this struck me with particular force when he was shown by the national channels as complaining in very, very moving terms that the Prime Minister of a country is being insulted and he is being strangulated. Prime Minister ka gala khond raha hai, that's something to that effect. And no one will be allowed to strangulate the Prime Minister of India. Now, that statement struck me as something quite out of the blue, like a bolt from the blue. That's the last thing that I expected Sri Narendra Modi to say in public. Even if he felt irritated, upstaged, angry, indignant, he should not have made a statement like that, because it's a public display of weakness. It doesn't square up at all with the 56-inch breast span that was so famously claimed for him. And to me in particular, it's a very painful sight to see this change. I do not want this to happen to anyone. A person who has served the country for 10 years deserves his ration of respect and affection by the people. But the fact of the matter is that there is a radical change. The question is, how are we to understand this? Now, to understand the change, the simplest thing to start with is the realization, which is too simple to need any statement, but I'm going to state it, that there's a change from point A to point B. And point B is different from point A. This is what we are trying to understand. Now, therefore, the first thing to do here is to understand point A. Now, in the point A condition of Narendra Modi, he had tremendous momentum. He was like a juggernaut that could not be halted by anyone. He was his own man and he had everything going for him. And there was none like him. And the kind of energy that he exuded, the kind of moral authority that he made others feel about him, all that, if you really now in retrospect, if you try to analyze the secret of it, you'll come to a very significant understanding or significant finding. Now, I did not understand it then. I'm understanding it now in the light of the changed circumstances. After all, some of these things that remain hidden from public view will come to light only in hindsight, after a process has gone on and something like a contrary state slowly comes into being, which then stimulates you to think differently of what you have seen in the past. That's called hindsight. Now, in hindsight, I realize, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm always open to correction. I think the charisma of Narendra Modi, the sense of invincibility, the aura of unprecedented personal charisma, charm, power, strength, all the rest of it, whatever characterized Narendra Modi of 2014 to 2019 and even 2024. Now, when I think about it, strangely enough, I realize that all of that tour de force, that is that kind of matchless power and charisma, the aura of great authority, power, leadership, all the rest of it, all that was derived from the weakness of his opponents. Now, therefore, and this is the first time I'm coming to this realization, so I'm also very new to this insight. Now I'm inclined to think that there are two types of personal charismas. One is positive charisma and the other is negative charisma. Positive charisma is what you find in a person like Lord Buddha, Jesus Christ, Mahatma Gandhi, etc. It's not borrowed from somebody else's weakness. It is the charisma that has its origin within their own personal greatness, in terms of their vision of life, in terms of their character, their stature, in terms of the mission that they have come to accomplish, the reach and scope of their mission. Lord Buddha's mission embraces the whole of humanity. That has a charisma of its own, power of its own. Now, that's not borrowed from the weakness of his opponents. It is something that is native to him. That's what I call positive charisma. But there is something called negative charisma, and that is the charisma derived from the weakness of your opponents. So, in comparison to them, you stand out as a shining example of a better alternative. Now, for example, suppose you are used to a particular medicine. For headache, suppose you take medicine X. Don't take medicines for headache. As far as possible, don't eat medicines at all. I follow that discipline. I touch medicines only as the absolute last resort. I try to manage without medicine, and only if I come to the desperate state when I think that I cannot but manage without taking a few tablets, then I take. So don't become an addict to drugs of any kind, hard drugs or soft drugs, prescription drugs or non-prescription drugs or whatever. So suppose you take a particular medicine for, say rashes on your skin, leave alone headache. And then an article appears in the newspaper saying that a new drug has been invented which is proven to have tremendous potency to solve this problem with just one tablet. Now suddenly, the tablet that you have been taking for a long time, or say have taken on many occasions, loses all its worth completely. There's absolutely no worth. And this new tablet which has hit the market just now, and it has come with all the fanfare of the support by medical magazines and doctor certificates and advertisements, so on and so forth, and you just make a beeline for it. And the point is, you don't realize at that time that the attractiveness, the great expectations, the enthusiasm that you come to attach to the new tablet is nothing inherent to the new tablet actually. It's borrowed from the inadequacy of the old tablet. Suppose you had another tablet which is of equal power, then you don't feel that attachment, that excitement, that enchantment. So that's what I mean. Or take the case of a phone. You bought, shall we say, whichever your phone is, Samsung, particular, I don't know which make it is, and you were quite happy with it. Then the news comes that the 2024 make of this particular phone with somewhat improved features, and these improvements are quite questionable. The improvements effected will have absolutely no bearing on the basic function of the phone, which is to connect it to somebody else. That quality, that function remains exactly the same. Some kind of additional thing, some little thing will be added to that, just to generate in your mind total disenchantment with the gadget you have in your hand, which is functioning beautifully. There's nothing wrong with it. But all of a sudden, you lose all your value for it, and you must now rush to the market, to the outlet, and buy this new one in the market. So the attractiveness of this new piece is nothing but what is borrowed from the lack of merit, presumed lack of merit on the part of the old model. So the old model will lose out to the new model, and the new model will conquer and drive out the old model from the market. Not because the new model has something great to offer, but some kind of inadequacy was ascribed to the new model. When the old model, when the new model is advertised, the advertisement will clearly highlight what the old one was lacking. Say the old one had memory only up to this, but the new one has slight enlarged memory. The old one had a camera which is, say, 6 megapixels. The new camera has 6.5 megapixels. And suddenly the old camera with only 6 megapixels becomes so useless. You don't even want to look at it. This is how the human psychology is exploited in the public domain. So please understand that this kind of great excitement that was created, the great aura that was conjured up, almost like a magical procedure, had all its power, charm, attractiveness borrowed from the perceived demerit, inadequacy, or lack of merit of the other, the party that was substituted by. That was the reason why so much of effort was expended by Sri Narendra Modi to paint Congress and its leaders in such a negative light. And the people in this country were persuaded in their millions and millions to believe that Congress was the embodiment of all that was vile, wicked, and dark and sinister in this world. But now, of course, they are realizing that that was not true, and therefore there is a turnabout. And what Rahul Gandhi is doing, I don't know if he is aware of this in the sense, in the terms in which I am trying to explain to you. You can watch out for it. Watch out for any statement on his part. What Rahul Gandhi is now doing is doing to Narendra Modi and company exactly what they did to the Congress party 10 years ago. Namely, by his actions in reaching out to people who are in trouble, the poor, the traumatized, the excluded, the lackluster people of India, with whom the ruling elite will have nothing to do, including Sri Narendra Modi, though he claims to have originated in the lowest of the low, the Chayawala and the rest of it. He has nothing to do with that, the section from which he seems to have emerged. But here is somebody who is trying to be exactly what Sri Narendra Modi is not. And therefore, the attractiveness that we now feel towards Rahul Gandhi is again borrowed from what Sri Narendra Modi is not. In saying so, I am not trying to detract from or subtract from the value of what Sri Rahul Gandhi is doing or representing. I don't want to insinuate that he is now doing it only as a strategy and that when he gets power in his hands, he will forget all of this and we will see a completely different person. which is something that we are used to, a pattern that's not unfamiliar to us. And that's not what I'm trying to insinuate. What I'm saying is the psychology of this new attraction that we feel towards Rahul Gandhi is because it's a study in contrast to Narendra Modi, just as the attraction that I felt, I don't know about you, in 2014 towards Narendra Modi, as I did not realize then, was entirely due to what was lacking in the Congress party and not because of something present in him, though it was always presented the other way around, that there was something very profound in him, that is a great Messiah, and his intuition, for better for worse, that he is not a person of biological origin and that he is come from God, is actually the culmination of that process by which some great merit was ascribed to him, actually by default, but which was understood by him in a different light, and therefore he began to believe that all these great merits are inherent in him, and if you add all these great merits, the sum total of it is divinity. So you can't blame him if he ever succumbed to a kind of illusion or hallucination of that kind. Now, if you remember, I did a video saying that I'll wait for a little while longer before I dismiss this claim. I have to say that by now I'm fairly clear that Sri Narendra Modi was in a delusional state in claiming himself to be a person of divine origin, because if he really were a person from divine context or with a divine mission, he wouldn't have nearly wept in public saying, "Why are you strangulating the Prime Minister of India?" Now, nobody was actually strangulating him. Nobody was throttling him. He was being criticized as he was criticizing everybody else. So for him to come to that kind of a state of mind clearly shows human weakness and not divine perfection. So with that, I'm absolutely clear in my mind that this subjective feeling that he was more akin to divinity than humanity is a state of hallucination or delusion or whatever. So I wouldn't take that claim now seriously. Though, as I said at that time also, I'm reluctant to dismiss anyone's claim out of hand. I will always wait till I get sufficient grounds before I come to a final conclusion about it. In this particular respect, my mind is now made up, and it's a closed chapter. So, there is a need to exercise an element of caution when we judge personalities in public life. Do not get swept off your feet by the display with which you are sought to be overwhelmed, the display of somebody's importance, somebody's unrivaled abilities, matchless powers, some kind of personal charisma, the kind of near divine status, so on and so forth. All that may well be borrowed from the inadequacies of the opposite camp. So much so, the irony and the paradox of Indian politics is that what greatly contributed to building up the wonderful image of Narendra Modi was the Congress party and its leaders, not every one of them, but by and large the Congress party, and the ineptitude of UPA 2, not UPA 1. UPA 1 was fairly all right, but things began to slip out of control by UPA 2. That's precisely what set up the stage for the emergence of Narendra Modi as a national alternative, and I give full credit to him for using the opportunity given to him on a platter by the Congress party. And my good old friend Arun Shourie, in his own characteristic fashion, said in an interview, which I now very vividly remember, he said that from his point of view, the real poll managers of Narendra Modi were Dr. Manmohan Singh and Sonia Gandhi. Now, I don't fully endorse that view, but there's an element of truth in what he's saying. Perhaps I would say not these two persons in particular, but the general ineptitude and the sense of drift that the UPA 2 really suffered from. And that is the source from which Narendra Modi borrowed all his political oomph, so to speak, the political vitality and the great charm and the charisma that attracted so many people who therefore lined up to vote for him. But by now, and this is bad news for the BJP, they may not like my saying this and they may really become very angry with me, but this is the truth. It's high time to realize that now, to the extent that the 2024 election results have thrown up something different from the idea, from the structure of reality, negative structure of reality that Narendra Modi and the camp constructed of the opposition parties, the now opposition parties, Congress in particular, they cannot any longer draw mileage from the source that they have been drawing from. That's now a closed chapter. They'll have to now gain something on their own. They have to actually now bank on providing good governance, on which, in my opinion, they did not bank enough. They could have done a lot better. Maybe it is now getting too late, we do not know. There is a dramatic shift in popular perception and popular appreciation as regards Rahul Gandhi, and no matter how much BJP and the camp gnash their teeth against it, no matter how much they revile and cavil against it, it's a reality. And the more they try to harass, ridicule, insult and handicap Rahul Gandhi, the more the people will move towards him, because now they will feel, they have already begun to feel, that it is a political leader who stands for us. And if therefore the government is seen to be hounding him, the people of India will feel more and more that the government is turning against them. Because after all, now far and wide, people everywhere have begun to see Rahul Gandhi as their leader, as is seen by, as is proved by several opinion polls. Including the Center for the Study of Developing Societies opinion poll in UP of all states, where Rahul Gandhi was seen 6 months ago as far ahead of Narendra Modi in popular rating. And this is now the case in many, many states, including the states that are going into polls, assembly polls in the near future, three such states. And even regarding a very small YouTube channel like mine, and I do these things as a matter of test case, if I post a video on Rahul Gandhi and another video on Narendra Modi, the number of people who see the Rahul Gandhi video will be at least 4 times greater, more, than the number of people who would see a Narendra Modi video. I've tried this out. And in the context of Kerala, and of course I have people from practically every state of India and every union territory as well. So I see a very clear shift in popular attachment, and therefore the more Rahul Gandhi is targeted, the more he is harassed, the more people will attach their sympathies and their admiration to Rahul Gandhi, and therefore this is a self-defeating stratagem. It will boomerang on BJP and its allies to pursue this path. It is a suicidal path. I hope they would have the sense to retreat from this, but unfortunately it seems to have become second nature, and therefore it could go on and on for some more time. But the more it continues, the more it will become counterproductive, and the more it will redound to the public image of Rahul Gandhi and the electoral profit of his party and of India Alliance in general. So the main thesis that I was trying to share with you is that the secret of the great matchless charisma that we had come to associate with Sri Narendra Modi lay not in him or his party, but ironically in the Congress and the UPA. It was their demerit, it was their failure, their flaws, their inadequacies, from which the great energy, the charisma of Narendra Modi was borrowed. In other words, if this This factor, that's the weakness and the inadequacies and the aberrations of UPA 2 did not exist, Narendra Modi would not have been the Prime Minister of India, and we would not have been discussing him at all. This is the greatest irony of contemporary Indian politics. I submit this thesis to your consideration and I await your feedback. As you know, I am continuously educated by the kind of high quality responses that so many of you enrich this channel with. And I'm grateful to each one of you. As you know, I've acknowledged each one of you in spite of the fact that it's a very, very tedious and time consuming thing to do. I pay attention to every word that every person writes because I value each one of you personally, individually. So I wait for your feedback, your responses. So let's continue our journey together. Jai Hind.